shame your new spotlights are working anyway. It's all right. So we've got Linda Harkins here, and you're from the Middlesbrough Avenue Methodist Church, yeah?
Yeah, that's where our main project is.
Oh, is it on?
That better? Yeah.
So, could you, tell us a bit about yourself, just to start off?
Yeah, I'm married with 2 children. I'll just give it a brief background. I've lived in Grangetown till I was 16, moved to Asylum when my family split up. When I was 17, went in the RAF, WRAF, for 4 years. Lived away for about 10 years, came back with a husband and 2 children. And I've lived in Thornaby in outskirts of Stockton for 27 years next month. Had no connection with church at all until we moved to Thornaby, and my husband's catering by trade, and he did a Christmas meal for the Thornaby Methodist people, and they were very welcoming people, and at the time we were thinking about moving to Thornaby but hadn't made any plans. And I said to Eddie, my husband, that I think I've always had this faith in the background. I know I have. When I was 11, the lady who cleaned for my mum told us that the world was going to end at Christmas. This was about October, and I was absolutely terrified. And my mum's consolation was that we would all go together, which did nothing to help me in the middle of the night. I was so frightened, and the only thing that seemed to get me by was saying the Lord's Prayer and the 23rd Psalm to myself. So I think I've had this faith that was there but didn't know what to do with it, but I felt like I wanted to do something with it when we moved to Thornaby, and I said to Eddie that I would like to start worshipping at a church, at Thornaby Methodist Church, when we moved there. And we moved there on February the 18th and started worshipping at Thornaby on Mother's Day that year, so just a matter of weeks later. And I've been a Methodist since then, so not brought up and bred in the Methodist Church at all, or any church, come to that. Right. So live in Thornaby, and just down the track, we no longer worship at Thornaby Methodist. We've transferred our membership to Trinity, and I'm a member at Trinity Methodist in the Middlesbrough and Eston circuit.
So you now work for the Middlesbrough Asylum Partnership? Project. Yeah. That's close. Began with a P.
The M stands for Methodist. Methodist Asylum Project Middlesbrough. See? As opposed to anyone that has a Methodist Asylum Project anywhere else in the country. Yeah.
Great. So tell us a little bit about how you got from where you were then to how you started working with Asylum Seekers now. Yeah.
I'm convinced that the project is spirit-led, because if you'd have said to me, I've been working for the Methodist Church for 9 years, it's gone September, and if you'd said to me 9 years ago, you're going to be working with people seeking asylum, I would have probably said, who are they? I mean, yeah, you can have a stab a guess at who people seeking asylum are, but I certainly had no idea that that was what was planned for me. I took the job on originally, well, again with a little bit of background. I went in the WRAF, as I said, came out, joined the civil service and transferred it to here pretty much after I'd had the children. When I say here, like the Middlesbrough area, and left the job centre as it was then because I didn't like the way things were going, didn't like the way clients were treated, and my husband in the meantime was worked in a cafe. He had a cafe in the inn shops. And I thought that taking redundancy at the time would help us. We'd have this big successful business. Unfortunately, neither of us have really a business. Well, I think my husband's better than me, but I couldn't bear charging people heavy prices. We didn't make it. Anyway, cut long story short, it was quite obvious that once I started into the business that the job centre salary had been supporting us, really subsidising the business, so I needed another job. And I got a job working in a factory, which, nothing against working in factories, but I never ever thought that I would end up working in a factory. But I'm convinced that God has all these plans for us, and looking back now, I know that it was to help me see a different side of life, because in the job centre and in the RAF to a certain extent you're sheltered from real life, really, and in the job centre you have a blinkered approach, I think, to certain aspects of life. And I worked in the factory for about 6 years. In the meantime, my husband had a heart attack, and I needed to keep working. It was good pay at the factory. But I wasn't fulfilled by working in the factory. The good thing was I didn't think about it. I walk out the factory gate and never give it another thought until I walked in again. And I think at that moment in time I needed that space to devote to family things. But then my husband was well enough to work looking for a job, and this job was advertised in the Gazette. And he showed me it, and I said, "Wow, that's a good job. I'd do that if I didn't need a salary. I'd do that job for nothing." And we'll apply for it. I said, no. So we had this: you apply, no, you apply. Anyway, I applied, and I went through my church. I went to our minister, was a probationary minister, and she was doing this. What do you call it? Just before people are ordained, testimony service. Just before she became ordained. I went to that service, and it was all about Nicola, rightly. Everything was about Nicola, but I just felt this, I didn't hear any voices, but I just felt this prodding that I needed to go home and fill that application form in, which I hadn't done. And I think the closing date was that Thursday. And I just made the deadline. In fact, my husband hand-delivered the letter to the superintendent minister. And I just thought, well, if I get an interview, I'll be quite happy. I hadn't been looking for that type of work for some time, or any type of work for some time. And I thought, if I get an interview, I'll be quite happy. Well, I got the interview, but when we went for the interview, it was at Avenue Methodist, and you went looking around the different churches where I would be based. I was supposed to be doing pastoral work and community work, 40 hours a week. And I was so adamant that I wasn't going to get this job. I phoned my husband at lunchtime and said, "There's lots of people here. One's done church planting, one's a retired teacher, and there was me with my late O-levels and no church work background at all." And I got the job, and I just couldn't believe it. And I just think from then, God's had me in his hand, and he's shown me what I needed to be doing. So, as I said, it was pastoral work and community work, and pastoral work was easy and a great privilege, visiting people who were connected to the church, hearing their stories and things. But the community work, I'm thinking, what am I going to do here? You know, and I was out and about looking around what's going on in the area of the two churches, and because of who I am, I just didn't feel like I could just sit and wait for opportunities to come to me. So I went up to Newcastle to visit a girl called Chris Carroll, who works with refugees, or did at the time, in the Newcastle Walker and Biker area. And I was really inspired by what she was doing, and came back to Middlesbrough, stood in Avenue New Church Hall, which had just been refurbished. And I'm thinking, yeah, we could do something here. But then I had to convince everybody else that that's what we could do. So we started off, it's like you go to a committee and they think, well, come back next time and we'll talk a bit more. And so time goes on. So I just said, look, let's set a date. And we opened the first drop-in for refugees and people seeking asylum on the 27th of November 2002. So we've just celebrated our 8th birthday back in November. But like I said, if you'd said to me 10 years ago or 9 years ago, this is what you're going to be doing, I couldn't say I would, because I didn't even know what it was all about, really. But I do now. Yeah.
Brilliant. So what help do you now provide for asylum seekers from the church in Middlesbrough? What kind of things do you provide? What do you do? Yeah.
We started off with that one drop-in. It was called Avenue Refugee Project because we took on board the mission committee, and the project belonged entirely to our Avenue. And I think the circuit down earlier in the day, we wanted to get funding for my post, and so when we started to apply for funding, we went to the Northern Rock Foundation, and we became a circuit-based project then, and had to be formalised and everything like that. At that particular time, we had one drop-in going that was at Avenue every Wednesday, and we welcome people of all faiths, no faiths, any nationality. And on that first day that we opened, we had about 12 single Iraqi men that came to the drop-in. We'd advertised previously at the refugee service, North of England refugee service, different church groups, different doctor surgeries. We were very aware then, as we are now, that you don't have a big sign up saying all refugees and asylum seekers welcome, because it would attract adverse, comments, publicity, whatever. So we just advertised in all the right places. And on that day we opened, we offered pool, table tennis, refreshments, access to clothing and household goods. And that's pretty much what we still do, but on particularly before Christmas, our numbers have gone down a little bit, but I'll tell you about that later. We have regularly now about 70 people who come on a Wednesday from 12 till 3 for those same things, but primarily we offer a safe space where people can feel welcome, and all the other benefits come along: clothing, households. Because despite what the press still have you believe, and the media, people aren't given mobile phones, people don't get clothing allowances, and they don't take our houses and everything. Yes, they're housed, but if you saw some of the areas that people are housed in, they are housed in hard-to-let areas. And when people get status and move on, they're not necessarily in the best areas either. We've progressed from that first day when we opened. We now have a drop-in on a Thursday morning at in Pallister Park, which is one of the estates, and we offer exactly the same things, pretty much on a much smaller scale. On a Friday, we offer a project called Come and Chat, and that's at Linthorpe Road Methodist Church, and we offer people an opportunity to practice the English that they learn in ESOL classes. That's while ESOL classes are still running, because the government, in its wisdom, is going to stop the funding for ESOL classes for people seeking asylum. And on a Saturday afternoon, we do a games afternoon, predominantly for adults, where they can come and play table tennis and pool. Saturday mornings I do furniture for those people who offer it and want it, do a bit of a swap. Yeah, so it's a full programme really.